Good morning, everybody. I just wanted to take a second to introduce you to my partner in crime, Greg Trainer. I'm Mike Hudson with the Accessible Hunter podcast. It's always a blessing to be able to come in and chat with you guys. We're taking a little bit of time to talk about spring and summer and some of the activities that we can get into. Hunting and fishing, we love to cover, but Greg's a wealth of knowledge. I always appreciate his time and effort, but Greg, man, how are you doing today in PA, brother?
Man, I'm doing real good. I don't know how much of a wealth of knowledge I am, but I enjoy talking with people, and I really enjoy talking with you on our podcast, Mike. I think we have a lot to offer people, and at least bring people together, and we talk about some important aspects of accessibility in the outdoors, and really just try to motivate people getting out.
That's what it's about, man. It's just about raising awareness that, life goes on despite an accident or injury, and we have to make conscious decisions to get back out and just keep pushing. Right now, we're in the heat of I guess they want to call it spring, just by the dates, but man, we're in full-fledged heat blast summer here in the South, and I know it's not going to get any better. We're getting ready to go into July, so it's just ramping up even more. But outdoor activities, they still go on. We just have to find new ways to get out and do. Um, what are some of the activities that you like to do in the spring and summer, Greg, that we're not in full-fledged hunt mode right now? I mean, there are some stuff out there, dove season's coming up and all of that, but what's some of the activities you like to do in your kind of downtime, if you will?
Man, in the early, spring starting into summer, we get into gardening a good bit. And
Yeah.
we put in a couple of raised beds this year that are a little bit more accessible. I mean, my wife still does all the planting and things, but we designed it out together and putting in different tomato plants, pepper plants, broccoli, cauliflower, all that kind of stuff. And
Yeah.
I enjoy gardening with her and watching things grow. And this year we put up a like a little deer fence around it to keep the animals out of it. It's a mesh, like a black mesh that goes all around the garden and kind of
Yeah.
keeps the animals out. That was the first time we were doing it this year. We got tired of planting everything and the animals eating everything. So we do a little bit of gardening this time of year and uh, you know putting in some plants. We planted some red raspberries that are just going to be delicious in a year or so. So do a little gardening first, right after turkey season.
Man, we did the same thing. So I put in five raised beds. They're roughly like 2.5, 3 foot by 5 foot. They come up about, I'd say my elbow height or, armrest height on my chair. Makes it a lot easier for me to get in there and do a little hand tilling myself. I'm like you, my wife or somebody has to help me plant them. But man, have you ever tried a Cherokee purple tomato?
I have not, man. What is a Cherokee purple tomato?
So a buddy of mine turned me on to these things about 2 or 3 years ago. They're an heirloom tomato. And guys in the South, we love tomato sandwiches. I don't know about PA, but man, this is by far the best doggone tomato I've ever had for a tomato sandwich. They come out, they're big, they're more like one of your better boys or one of the, big robust, but these guys are almost a purplish color. And so they're a lot deeper hue than your standard bright red tomato. But the flavor is just phenomenal. And it's always a trip now, Greg. Being able to plant and try different peppers and try different types of vegetables and all that. I love it. I love being able to cultivate them in our own backyard. And so we're pulling up. We did poblanos, we did jalapenos, and we'll take and stuff them, and being able to do them from garden to table. It gives something different when you're talking about the wheelchair aspects of being able to do a little bit of that yourself. And then we did squash, cucumbers, mint. Trying to think of what else we got out there, buddy.
Boy,
Um,
mint will take over your garden if you let it.
oh wow.
We started off with a little bit of mint. My goodness, it's taken off over the years. We got to cut it back every year.
Yeah, we do one plant of mint, and you still have to kind of keep cropping it and breaking it off, or it will take over, especially a raised bed. Um,
Definitely.
but man, it's something different when you can see the plants grow. You can get out there, stake them up, and being able to try these things. So I'll have to get you some of these tomatoes, man, just to try it. But it's a Cherokee purple. Made a difference. I just enjoy getting out every year, seeing what they got. But every year I'm gonna plant one of those just for tomato sandwiches.
Heck, I'm definitely going to tell Beth because she's a big tomato girl. We like to make a lot of bruschetta, and
Yeah.
that's probably one of my favorite appetizers. So if we have some good tomatoes, and you said they're good on sandwiches, I'm sure it'd be good on bruschetta.
Oh yeah, 100%, man. I'm like you. If I can do a charcuterie or get out there and try out different food boards, we laugh around. And I told somebody, I said, I love getting out and trying these different places at wineries and whatnot, and they'll bring out some seasonal fruit or nuts. Being able to just try new avenues, pique your interest. Being able to open up your mindset and try new things. I enjoy that.
And as you said about the spring and kind of things we do, I'd get in trouble if I didn't mention our bees. So we got in a couple of beehives, and last year we were able to get our own honey. And Beth made some chapstick, which I'm probably addicted to chapstick. I use it every day, and we're making our own and having our own honey for our tea. And there's definitely something about bringing stuff in from farm to table. You kind of raise it yourself. You raise the bees, you raise the blueberries, raise the raspberries, raise the apples, and
Yeah.
you get to harvest it. So a good part of the outdoors for me is preparing for hunting season with planting different things, clover and things, but it's also harvesting what we plant. That's a big part of it.
One of the biggest things too about hunters, man, a lot of people, there's a stigma that go along with it. Anti-hunters are people that don't hunt. They don't get it, but a lot of times your hunters are your biggest advocates out there. That's your conservationists. That's the guys and girls that see the animals. They really want to pour into taking care of the animals. We do harvest some of the animals, but we try to do it ethically. We try to do it with the best practices out there, but we also want to take the time to know what the animals need, the foods they need, the kind of soil content. And if we're going to be honest, sometimes thinning out the herds is going to be the best medicine for them, because if we don't keep them in check, then unfortunately you start having a lot of issues that coincide with them as well.
That's exactly right, Mike. And knowing what to plant, and using native plants that are going to thrive in your area. There's so much available online. No matter what part of the country you live in, you can be a conservationist, you can be a farmer, you can be a hunter. All of those things are coinciding together.
Yeah. And that's about what it's about. It's about an ecosystem. We don't want to take away more than we're giving back. And so to make the whatever system you're in to reach homeostasis, we have to be able to pour into some of that too. And that coincides with your wheelchair hunters. These guys and girls, there's a whole avenue of getting out and doing, but we have to do it smartly. We need to prep. We need to make sure we're putting things in place. I'm like you in the springtime, man. We call it our air quotes downtime, but really there is no downtime. It's just a prep time. I'm big about wanting to make sure that my crossbows are, they're oiled up, all that stuff is taken care of. We're checking string. Um, but being able to get back out there and just spending time on target, honing what I'm doing to make sure that when the opportunity does present itself, that you can make an ethical shot, a good shot. But I take a sense of pride too of just being able to put an arrow or a bullet right where I want it to be.
Yes, sir. And right now is the prep time. There is no downtime in our lives anymore. We go from season to season, and if you don't want to wait at the archery shop for a couple of months, now's the time to be getting everything set up. Whether you're using a vertical bow or a crossbow, you get everything checked. You get your servings checked. You get your string, all that. now's the time to get your arrows refletched, your bolts. I know
Yeah.
I was at a couple of charity shoots where we were shooting floating ping pong balls. I don't know if you've ever done that or not, Mike, but man, is it fun. You're 20 yards away and they have floating ping pong balls with a air compressor kind of blowing and the balls turning, and they paint it half black. So you're getting that white and black, and it's really challenging, but man, does it tear up the fletchings on the crossbow bolt.
I've never done that in itself. My grandson has a game that does that where he shoots little ping pong balls at floating ping pong balls. But as far as me doing it, I never have, not on that aspect. We used to challenge each other when I was in the Marine Corps, and we would bring out stuff like pool cues, the chalk, the blue chalk. We would bring it out because you can see from a distance when you hit it, and so we would challenge each other at known and unknown distances to see who could hit what. We would shoot things like racket balls or a 1 liter or 2 liter drink bottle. You put a little bit of water in it. So when you pull the trigger at a long distance, you know you hit it because it would expand and explode. And I love that challenge aspect of it. I love being able to get out there and try new things. We do it, with clay shoots and being able just to if you're a wing shooter or you're getting ready for dove season, in the South that kicks off in August or September. Now's the time to get out there, make sure your shotguns, your chokes, everything is working right. But then you're also prepping too with ammo, making sure that you got it so you're not chasing it in hindsight.
Man, that's keeping practicing fun too. I never heard about the chalk challenge, but that sounds like a lot of fun to be able to shoot a little 1 inch square of chalk at known and unknown distances. I know that you're a Marine Corps shooter, so you probably didn't have any difficulty at that, but that'd be a challenge and something fun. I know a lot of people when they're dialing in their crossbow, they'll shoot at balloons or different things just to make it fun and interesting, especially if you're hunting with kids and trying to get kids involved. You want to make practice and going to the range a fun experience for everyone.
Man, we did that. So one of the activities I really want to try to figure out how to make more wheelchair accessible is axe throwing. And it sounds like, oh, why would you want to do that? But it's a great opportunity for accuracy, team building, all these different avenues. And Greg, man, we went to one place and you booked by the hour. And I'm thinking, man, we're going to sit here and throw hatchets for an hour. They really made it where it was extremely challenging, but then they rotated it. So we started out throwing these hatchets or little knives, and so I could even be involved in it, even with some hand dexterity issues. They started bringing out stuff like ninja stars, and then they started adding balloons to it. And then when you got to where you threw those for just a few minutes and you got pretty accurate, then they would change it up and bring something else in there. And all it was to keep you challenged, to keep you motivated. And then it got into a challenge where now you're getting competitive with your teammates. Um, but then it also brings in a whole new avenue of let's work on accuracy, let's work on patience, making a good shot or good toss or whatever in the moment. And
Yes,
so
sir.
you have to be really grounded and connected with it to try to make it. And then so I'm again, man, my mind goes right into how can we get more quads, guys with hand dexterity issues out there. How can we make these things more accurate and more encumbersome where you can bring and being more inclusive? And so we were looking at stuff like slingshots and sling bows, for the guys that didn't have grip. Can we make a sling bow so that they can shoot little bolts, and be involved? And so I know that you're big on technology and being able to get out there. And so what are some trigger mechanisms or some of the devices that you use with your crossbow and some other stuff that help you to be in the game?
Dude, I've been using, as you know, Be Adaptive Equipment. They've just been a phenomenal resource for me with their sip and puff trigger. Whenever I first started back hunting, I used a crank trigger and it worked great. It was fine, but I can't feel my hands. I can't feel my arms. So I
Yeah.
was always looking at the crank trigger, looking through my scope, kind of going back and forth. But Be Adaptive, they have a sip and puff that just works phenomenal for me, a high level quad, and it's made me a lot more accurate. So the company that I always go back to is Be Adaptive Equipment, and I know you've used it, quite a bit as well. Um, Whatever works for people. They have, pulls that you can wear on your wrist. That
Yeah.
is kind of like a metal trigger if you want to go that way. They have bite triggers, different styles. It all depends on your level of injury, how much movement you have, how much sensation, and really what you want to do. Um, any type of shooting that you want to get involved in, you can pretty much find adaptive equipment to make that happen.
That's one of the things you brought up a good company, man. Be Adaptive's been really good to us. The thing I like about them too, mom and pop shop, those guys over there, man, if you tell them that you have this hand dexterity issue or you're having this, they'll spend time to help you hone that piece of equipment to be able to be more wheelchair user friendly. But at the same token, they've Jacob and those guys were really good on some AR formats that we had some quads that came over here shooting with us, and they're used to doing stuff that are more universal for crossbows or bolt guns or shotgun. And so when I told them, hey, we're having this issue with an AR format, Jacob and those guys jumped right into a Zoom meeting with us, and they were like, well, we can shorten the cable here, we can add this. And so it brought up a new product, but at the same time, they're doing it in real time and they're seeing the issues, they're tweaking them with you. And so it's about trying to find that tech that works for you. And there's a lot of guys and girls out there that can still pull the trigger. I'm pretty good with using my thumb, but Greg, over time, what I found that I was doing, it's okay if I'm doing something like a shotgun on a target. On a
Yes, sir.
it's a whole nother ball game. And so what I was doing is I'm holding it and pulling the trigger with my right thumb. And so what I started seeing, looking through a scope, right? Looking through that optic, I was pulling the whole shotgun or rifle to the right. And then so when I went to a sip and puff, it takes all that lag out of it. It takes the humanality away from it in that all the factors that I was putting into it, waiting for recoil, all of these different things, it took that out. And so my able-bodied buddies came over, they shot a sip and puff, and man, they were like, dude, I want one. All you have to do is shoulder it, hold it in place, barely suck on that straw, and man, it is putting lead on target precisely.
It's increased my accuracy dramatically. As you know, using your hand and using different type methods, there's always that variable, even when you're sighting in. Am I pulling it? Am I cantering my gun? With that sip and puff trigger, it goes straight back every time the same way, and it's definitely increased my accuracy.
Well, here's the biggest kicker too, and I don't like the soapbox too much, and I try not to horn in and hold these conversations where it's just about me talking. But a lot of times when we're getting out and people talk about like high capacity magazines, when we're getting out and shooting, the sip and puff 100% makes a massive change in my accuracy and my fun level of being able to, for me, keep time on target and being able to shoot. I'm out there because I want to take time to pull the trigger. And
Yep.
so, if I can load a high cap magazine where I'm not just spending the majority of my time, and here's the truth, I can't load these magazines a lot of times by myself, so somebody else has to help me do it. If I'm not bothering them or causing more issue by having to just stop, spend an hour loading and 5 minutes shooting, it takes away from what we're really wanting to do, and that's put lead accurately on a target.
Exactly. Now, Mike, we're kind of talking a little bit about shooting right now. It might be a good segue to some exciting news you have.
Man, again, I'm a man of faith. And so God, man, he's been wearing me out lately. And so we applied for a grant through, again, this is about raising awareness for things out there. An awesome company that's not too far from us. So Daniel Defense is in Georgia. They do a lot of ARs and different high-end guns. And so found out that they were doing a grant for South Carolina, applied for the grant. And man, this is the first time we're advertising it out there. We got accepted for a small grant. We just put in for some shotgun shells, some clays to be able to bring guys and girls out and do some more clay shoots, to be able to spend that quality time just with family and friends, and being outdoors together and making memories. And last week got a call that Daniel Defense is going to pick up some of ours and being able to supply those things, but also write a check that we can continue to do some more philanthropic work, but get around the Second Amendment and get guys and girls out. Time on target, man.
Man, that is so exciting. It's great news that, a local company, East Coast local anyway, and they approved your grant, and you're going to be able to help so many people. And I know that you do a charity shoot, a clay shoot every year, and it's really well attended, and this will allow people to do that so much more. So thank you, Daniel Defense, for what you're doing for War Outdoors, and Mike, thank you for what you're doing, for the people of South Carolina and the people that travel in for your shoot.
Dude, here's the kicker. There's so many of these companies out there that, yeah, they're in it to make money. That's the capitalistic life and style we live in. We work because we want to get paid. But almost all these companies have a philanthropic aspect that coincides with it, and they really believe in their missions. And these guys and girls, Cabela's, man, we've been blessed. We've had a couple Cabela's grants that help with all of our archery and our targets, and these companies really just want to give back. And these podcasts is what it's about. It's about raising awareness that there are grants out there for some of this tech, and everybody can apply for them. You don't have to be a nonprofit for some you do. But I don't want to do anything that's just about me. My heart is to be able to give back to others. And Greg, there's times, man, that I will not ever be on the trigger. I'll give up my opportunity to be behind the trigger just to see somebody else get that opportunity to try it. And that's what we want to do. We want to find that, and that's what I do a lot of times during the day is really get out here and seek what kind of grants are out there or what kind of tech's out there that help people. One of the things, again, that coincides with hunting is also our fishing aspect. And I found a new reel that's out there, man, and it's an electric reel. I've never tried it, but there's a company out there that's making an electric reel. And one of the guys that me and you have had on the podcast in the past, Coy Varnum, me and him were talking last week, and this thing runs off of a drill battery or a drill motor. And so you can take a spinning reel, barely push this button, and it will retrieve your lure at a certain speed so that now you can stay into that kind of finesse fishing. But if you need to hoss a fish out of there, you can lay down on that button, man, and it'll pull him on out of there.
Man, technology just keeps getting better and better. And it's great that we can mention things like this and motivate people to get out. If they were thinking about fishing, there's a way to do that too.
Yeah.
Somebody's always inventing something to make it more accessible to get people out. Because let's face it, as sportsmen, we got an aging population. There's a
Yeah.
lot of people with hand dexterity that are not in wheelchairs that
Mhm.
this could still benefit. People that have really bad arthritis that are unable to reel in a fish, they may find this beneficial.
That's what advocacy is about. It's not just about what's best for the wheelchair community. Push button doors in facilities help able-bodied people as well. You got your arms full, you bump a button and it helps you out. And that's the same thing with this tech. We'll add these links at the end of the podcast, but being able to find that equipment that's out there, nobody knows about it unless you find it. We don't know what we don't know until we need it and we're going to look for it. And so a lot of times what we do, if I get my board members together for my nonprofit, it's about, what kind of events do we want to set up? But then in the aspect of that is what kind of tech do we need to do to make sure that that's inclusive for everybody? And
Right.
so, again, it's about raising awareness. That's the beauty of being able to share these podcasts with you, is being able to talk about hunting and fishing. And we're doing it from a wheelchair standpoint. We're blessed that Dan and those guys picked us up, and a lot of the folks that listen to his shows are able-bodied, and we're just trying to show that we want to get out just as much as everybody else. We just do it a little bit different.
And that's a good point too, Mike, that we do it a little bit different, but we're still able to get out. And take ground blinds for instance. Look how far ground blinds have come in the last 10 years. And it not only benefits people with disabilities, people in chairs, but it benefits families, taking young kids out. The baronet blinds that we're using now that have the garage style door on
Yeah.
it. I mean, what a great idea that is, that you can unzip two zippers and the whole back wall flips up so you can get your kids in. You can get a wheelchair in easily. And as people with disabilities start using more equipment, it also benefits the able-bodied population as well.
Man, that's a kicker too, Greg, is that everything is becoming a multi-million dollar organizations and different aspects, and rightfully so. You see it, there's a lot of tech that goes into the development of new products and all that, but it's about them being made aware that there's an issue out there that needs to be sorted out. And so, the ground blind community has really grown. Aging population, a lot of people don't want to climb, they don't want to get up and out there, and a lot of times it's a timing thing. You don't have time to go out there and set up all your lock on devices to be able to climb a deer stand and do whatever. But you can get down and dirty with really good tech. And these ground blinds will keep you warm. They'll keep you dry, get you out of the elements. But then they also allow you to kind of cover and conceal yourself. But man, these things have gone a long way. Now we can roll straight into them with our chairs. And then they've gotten to where now you can get inside some of them and see through. And they're absolutely crystal clear from the inside. It's mind blowing when you get into some of these things. And dude, they're transparent from our end. The animal
It,
doesn't see you, but man, it is really cool.
exactly, man. The see-through sides, because I'm not able to rotate my chair. I can't turn my chair on. It'll make too much noise when I turn. I'm able to
Yeah.
look left and right now, where before I only had a tunnel vision straight forward. Now it's still frustrating sometimes when I see an animal to my right or to my left, and I'm unable to turn to take that shot. But at least I can see him. I can see him coming from a distance away on my left or right now. So the see-through blinds have certainly added to my enjoyment.
That's one of the things too. We have to be honest in our assessments. And so, guys and girls that are listening, as quads or paras, everybody's function and abilities are different. I see a lot of the guys and girls we work with that are amputees or lower level paras. They've got a little bit more trunk dexterity and they can turn a little bit more right or left. But Greg, you brought up a good point. A lot of times as a quad hunter, I have to set myself up to where I think the animal is going to come and kind of prep, because our chairs do make a clicking sound every time we turn right or left. And maybe for some animals that might not be a problem, but I have to kind of already know where the animal is more likely to go and set up in the best avenue or approach. And so I can be on that animal. Hard to do when you got a wild animal. A turkey or deer is going to do what they're going to do. But we try to set up in best avenues that we can.
Absolutely, dude. And you and I are mostly crossbow hunters. I know we like to do a lot of archery. It may not be quite as noisy to a deer out at 150, 200 yards if you're a rifle hunter, but when you're talking about 10 feet or 20 yards, it makes a big difference. And I don't think I'd ever give up my crossbow, but it's definitely challenging. It's a fun way to hunt for sure.
And it's always about taking the animal. It's that's great when we can get out there and fill our freezers and do that kind of thing. But a lot of times, man, you're right on the money. If we're getting out there, our everyday chairs, we can't get those everyday smells out of them. So now you got a whole nother avenue of trying to spray these things down and control scent and all that. If we can fool an animal that all of his defenses are set in place to keep him alive from predators and other things, and we can get even close to him, I call that a win. You know, these
Absolutely.
big and bulky and they make a lot of noise. They also have a lot of smells and different things that coincide. And so I just enjoy being out and about. Um, and if we can do it safely, ethically, but also find new ways to get more guys and girls out there, that's a win-win.
And Mike, this is the time of year that we do want to get out with our chairs, find out what the capability of that track chair is or our everyday chair. Find out if we're able to get into these hunting spots that we plan on hunting in the fall. Now's the time to, practice some navigation with your track chair or how you're going to be getting in and out, cutting some shooting lanes,
Yeah.
preparing the site for your wheelchair. I always like to hunt on as level up a platform as I can because I'm always fighting gravity with my trunk control. So if you need to get out there and level up your ground blind location, now's the time to be doing all that kind of stuff too.
Yeah, we set all our feeders. Right now is the time we'll start putting out corn and supplements to try to get the animals motivated and to be able to help them, have a healthier life. Deer and squirrels and raccoons and all that stuff. Everybody says, "Oh, if you hunt around a feeder, that's kind of cheating." These animals know what's best for them. We do a lot of corn and supplements in our feeders, but those deer and whatnot, they turn off of the feeders whenever the acorns and stuff start falling because they know what's that natural food out there. And so they go to it. But you're right. And so we start doing some of our prep for food plots. Where are we going to put in some of these ground blinds and whatever for easy approach? Being able to play the wind and being able to get out there and cut shooting lanes. Do all that now. Right now, I like to tweak and figure out my rifle rest. And so a rifle rest that works for you might not work for me. And so I have to find out what products out there and how can I make that best fit my needs. And as a quadriplegic, I can't set all this stuff up myself. And so I have to be able to find that product that's going to work best that I can explain it to an aide or a hunting buddy that's with me. And so I want to be able to do all that and figure it out, and a lot of times I want to be able to set it up in the dark. And so I have to be able
Exactly.
to find that product that's going to work flawlessly.
Yeah. Keep it simple. As the saying goes, the more complicated something is, or if it has a small screw or something that you have to use a lot of dexterity, chances are in the dark, whenever it's cold, and you're trying to explain that to somebody, you're going to have a more difficult time. I know that you and I are both, fortunate and blessed that we can set up a ground blind way ahead of time on our property, leave it, let the deer get used to it, let the turkeys get used to it. I'm thinking about doing something a little bit different this year and putting in a horse mat on the ground for my chair. Have you ever done anything like that, Mike? Put a plywood floor in or anything on your pop ups?
Man, you know that dude, you hit a monster thing. And so we figured that out years ago on dove hunts. And so those birds are going to fly in, they're going to come in from different avenues. So what we'll do is we'll take a sheet of plywood, cut it in half, and then put burlap up around it. And we started doing it around some of our dove fields. And then you're right. So if I'm in my track chair, it really doesn't matter. Those things, they just go. They have a natural tendency to get you in and out of wherever you're at. Track chairs, they don't have a problem going. My everyday chair will. And so, yes, I use a real thick horse mat or plywood or something in my ground blind if I'm going to be moving right or left because it doesn't take a whole lot in my Permobil everyday chair to kind of get marred up or because of the bolt for our easy locks to get those kind of bumped up on some roots or some grass or something like that, and it pulls more wear and tear on the chair, or really gets me muddy, and the next thing you know, you're either marred up and stuck, or I'm bringing extra junk into the house. And if I can get ahead of that animal too, I'm in better shape.
Yeah, buddy, I'm always dragging mud into the house, and fortunately, my wife loves me a lot and is understanding. She says that just means we were out having fun that day if the chair gets muddy. But I'm thinking about either plywood or the horse mats, and so that I don't slip and I can turn a little bit more easily, because I find myself hunting more out of my everyday chair just to avoid the so many transfers.
Yeah.
That I can get up into my blind in my regular everyday chair. It just makes things a little bit easier. Not doing a transfer into the track chair. Now, if we're going on a hunt someplace that we don't have set up or prepped, but what would you recommend, Mike? You've been doing it longer than me for flooring, the horse mats or plywood, or what do you think's better?
Both of them have their ups and downs. Um, Plywood's cheap enough, it's easy enough, you can do. You can get some thick stuff, do 3/4 inch plywood, something like that that can really handle the weight of our heavy chairs. But they get a little slick. And then you got to look at longevity. I like to use something that's a natural resource or a resource we don't have to keep replacing all the time. The horse mats, you can get them real thick. Tractor Supply in the South.
Yep.
I don't know if PA has, Tractor Supply or that kind of place.
Yeah, they
Um,
do.
and those have little ridges in them. I like them, but man, they get heavy. But they're a resource that's going to be around for a good long time because of the materials they're made with. And then too, you really have to look at what your environment's going to kind of dictate. Um, the rubber mats do good unless they get wet and your tires can get slick. But then they also have a little bit of a traction with the ridges and that kind of thing. I enjoy the horse mat part of it because they're quiet. And if I drop something, they don't echo or a sheet of plywood. If you dropped a flashlight or something like that, your cell phone, it's going to make a little bit more noise. But I like those. I like that kind of material.
I think I might follow your advice and go with the horse mat. I was thinking about the same thing. I didn't know if it would be a little bit slick. When you go up into a ground blind, a lot of times our wheels are wet from the dew, going across. And I didn't know if I would experience some traction issues getting into a rubber mat, but I didn't think about the ridges on it actually adding traction.
Yeah, you might lose a little bit of that with the viscosity of wet tires and all that, but our chairs are so heavy, they'll help. But either way, it'll do a lot better than marred up mud, being able to turn right or left, and then
Right.
to that being more of a flatter surface. If you were to get bound up, somebody would easier, be a lot easier to be able to get you out of that situation too.
Yeah. Do you stake them down, Mike? Any issues with them, pulling up like a rug sometimes happens with our chairs?
No, that when we do the horse mats, those things are so big. I mean, some of those things are an inch thick. So, if you get one of the ones that are made for like horse stalls and that
Hmm.
kind of thing, those things they're heavy. They lay flat. We don't stake ours down. I
Okay.
do stake the blind down around it,
Yeah.
um, especially if we got the garage door style that you can easily access. If we have one of the others, I'll stake down the front that we can flip it up and I can roll underneath it. But that way it keeps it centered on that mat. And I don't have to worry about going off on the edging. And then that way I can go ahead and brush in the front of the blind, let
Yep.
the animal get used to them being out there, and then they get used to the smells and everything as well.
We've actually bought the 12-inch ground stakes, aftermarket, pretty good camping style
Yeah,
stakes, and that's how we stake down our ground blinds and
yeah,
add the paracord tie downs, just because we leave them out so long anymore. We put them up at the end of August, first week in September, and we leave them out until December. So they take a lot of abuse from the elements. And if you don't have them staked down properly, you can have a problem, and your neighbor has to bring it back over to your house and say, hey, did you lose this ground blind because the wind took it?
yeah. You don't have a ground blind anymore. You got a kite, and
Speaking from personal experience one year, Mike. That's why I'm throwing that out there.
Hey, dude, I've had it happen to me before too, and even in setting up some of these things, we would only put stakes in the front, and then you get wind to the back, and it would lift the back of it up, and now you're in an unsafe, situation where this thing's flipping up on you. And I enjoy hunting a lot by myself, and if I prep right, it gives my wife a lot more peace of mind of me being out there as a quad. She knows where I'm at, and I let my buddies know which blind I'm going to be in case I run into a safety issue. But I enjoy being out there a lot, just to be able to kind of reset myself and be able to try to challenge myself. And can I get on this animal solo? And it's a lot of work, and a lot of things to pre-prep and pre-think about. But if you take the time to do it now, you're ahead of the game. And it's just like fishing right now. I enjoy fishing. We got to beat the heat. We got to do all this and that. But this is the time of year. I like to really start in February or so when it's still chilly. Go ahead and replace all my lines on my rods and reels so that when you're getting ready to get out there and do the activity, all that prep work is already taken care of. Now you can enjoy the fun.
Oh, exactly. And I mean, you're going to need a lot of poles with your new pond going in. I mean, taking care of your equipment, whether it's getting your crossbow service now, getting your fletchings redone on your bolts, or putting new line on your pole, that's all time well spent. And I never think of that as a bad thing. I always enjoy getting my gear cleaned up, putting new batteries in the flashlights, all that. It kind of adds to my enjoyment of being prepared, having a plan to go out there. And we talked a little bit about technology benefiting people with disabilities, how it went mainstream. If you think about all the voice activation now, 20 years ago, Mike, you and I were using Dragon Dictate, and that, kind of rolled into Naturally Speaking. And then the phone started using voice activation. And for safety, I take my iPhone, Velcro it onto the mount for my crossbow, and I'm able to communicate, just using my voice if I want to say, call Beth or what have you. It's come a long way with the technology.
Yeah, you bring a great point there, man. Is always have a way to communicate, always be prepared to be safe. All we can do is do our very best to do that. I've found over time, what I do a lot of times too, securing that device to me to make sure I can get to it when I need to get to it. I silence and that's one of the bigger things too, guys. When you're getting in the woods, make sure you hit that silent on your cell phone or whatever. You don't want to spook an animal because we forget. But then I've also learned to tether my phone to me. And
Mhm.
so with my Permobil chair, these things are pretty cool because they've got a USB port directly off of our armrest. So what I'll do a lot of times is I'll use that charging port to tether my phone to make sure that I can retrieve it if I were to drop it or whatever, but making sure I can easily get to it if I need it.
Dude, that's an excellent idea. And I rely on Velcro, sticking it right onto my gun mount. And
Yeah.
you were talking about the Permobil uh, charging ports. I have the same one under my armrest, but I've also got a uh, port on my charger
Yeah.
for my controller, and that's how I control my sip and puff trigger. I plug it right into that. Or one buddy made an adaptation for like a cigarette lighter, and it plugs
Yeah.
right in. And we were talking kind of with Be Adaptive about maybe having a plug that goes right into the controllers anymore. So we might even be able to plug it right into the chairs from now on.
Yeah, I've done the dovetails over time and, put a little port in on the 12-volt batteries and go to that. And then now you've got an extended cable you have to have. With 3D printers, we can print out the cigarette lighter, hook into a little 12-volt, be able to go to it. But if we can plug right into that charging port, it makes it a lot easier. It's a lot easier to move, a lot less stuff to get tangled up. But I like the avenues of being able to do other things. And so on that 3D printed device, that cigarette lighter, I found electric blankets, or I found ways to charge flashlight batteries, or have those different equipment. Do you do anything for packing in equipment when you go? I'm again anal retentive, and the Marine Corps has taught me a lot of things. So I bring first aid kits and I bring extra batteries and all that in a pack. Is there something that you bring now more so than you did before your injury?
Dude, I always have a first aid kit with me. And then I always have in my van extra medical supplies. So if I'm out and have a problem with my suprapubic, I'm not stuck somewhere. I have everything in my van, and I'm usually not too far from my van.
Mm.
I used to pack everything in a backpack. My wife would, tote it in, or would put it on my chair, that kind of thing. But I keep a lot of supplies and emergency gear in my van anymore. I
Yeah.
don't take it with me so much, just because I'm not hunting very far from the van anymore. Whether it's down at the farm or even on a hunt on public land. I keep things in the van to make sure I have it, but I don't take it to the ground blind anymore. As we're getting older, it's just too much to carry, too much to have, but I'm not far from it.
Here's the kicker. These chairs, man, the way insurance companies work and all of that, these chairs are really written to be in home use. And so we know they have limitations. They're really good about getting us out. But for the folks that don't know, these are appendages that are not something that we want to use. These are technology that we have to use. This my chair is my legs. They have limitations, but at the same token, I try to bring extra stuff that I can get to. Again, I like to hunt by myself, but I always stick extra water and extra medicine in my backpack just because there's been times that I've gotten out and gotten myself in a bind where uh, I've gotten some traction issues where I can't get off of it right away. And we'll call somebody, but it might be a few minutes before somebody can get to you. Prepare for that day, prepare for the weather to change. Have a poncho or something that you can get to just so that you're warm, safe, and you're taking care of every need that could be facilitated.
You bring up a good point about ponchos and rain, because rain and electronics, these power chairs are, super, super expensive. And if you have a gallon Ziploc bag to put over your controller, that's 35 cents, saving you $7,000 on a controller.
Right. That's the thing we have to look at too, Greg, is, we want to get out there and fly and travel, we have to make sure our chairs are not being tore up. Rain and electronics do not coincide. If you got to bring a bread bag, man, and just tie it over your hand control, just try to keep that out. But it's not just about hunting and fishing. You can be going to a ball game or, you can be out and about. Be prepared. And so I keep a little bag. Might be even a little fanny pack or something, but I keep a few little pieces of zip tie, duct tape, or something in there that I can put something over that hand control and just be prepared for being caught outside in inclement weather.
Absolutely, did an ounce of prevention, pound a cure, and that's actually
That
true.
Yeah. Man, we love to cover content on these things and, just raise awareness. But, I was thinking about some of the other activities and I know over time things have changed and what I used to do, I can't do as easily. What are some of the other activities? Do you get into kayaking or do you enjoy swimming type adaptive swimming or I know fishing, you used to do a lot of fly fishing. You still get out and do any of that?
I do a little bit of fishing anymore, Mike. I'm not really the fisherman that I used to be. When I was first injured, I was getting my scuba certification, so
Mhm.
that was really important to me, that I could get back into scuba diving. And at Shepherd Center, of course, they had the pool as physical therapy, and I got back in the water right away. So I'm not afraid of water anymore. My injury happened due to a diving accident. So I'm glad that I'm not afraid of water. I did get to go scuba diving a couple of times in a pool, which I
Yeah.
thought was pretty cool. But I don't really do it anymore. I never did open water diving, scuba diving, but I have done it in a pool. That's enjoyable. Um, as far as fishing, I do a little bit of trout fishing, do a little bit of pond fishing for bass every once in a while. But I mostly do, getting out with the wife, getting out with the grandkids, doing walks, going to state parks, going to trails and things like that. Um, there's a lot of activities that I like to do that are going to rifle ranges, going to the crossbow, set up in the backyard. Um, I don't do as many things as I used to as far as riding motorcycles and that kind of thing. But I still try to get out in the outdoors and make it as accessible as I can.
You know, man, you bring up a good point, man. One of my goals is I was like you at Shepherd Center. I got to get back into scuba, and I dove in their pond or in their pool. Um, I enjoy that avenue, and technology's come a long way that it's becoming more quad friendly. But man, I got one of the events I want to get into is a shark dive, dude.
Dude, it's the 50th anniversary of Jaws. I just watched that on
Yeah.
TV the other night, and you want a shark dive, man? Oh man,
It's not about a death wish. I had a lady ask me that one time. Do you just you have something that you want to have a demise come about? It's not about that. It's about living and finding those avenues that you really want to be a part of nature. Here's the thing. We're around all these animals out there that, if they wanted to really hurt you, that they could. That's not what sharks are really about.
right?
I enjoy, I've surfed around them all my life. We're in their environment. And so one of the really cool things is being so close to Atlanta. Atlanta's got an awesome aquarium, and they had some veteran services, and they do it with blue collar folks too. But I got invited to come and do a shark dive with them at the Atlanta Aquarium, which is phenomenal, right? So you got guys and girls that can help you get into the water. You've got certified experts that are right there in case you have any issue. And so that's a unique opportunity to get back out and try something different. If you didn't want to get into open water diving, and that's a whole nother element. You've got currents and different things that you're going to have to fight with and getting on and off boats and the logistics. So that's an avenue if anybody's listening that wants to get out and try shark diving or being able to get out and just try scuba in general. But I always joke around and I said, "Oh man, those are captive sharks, man. They're tame. They're domesticated. I want to get out with these. I want to get out with the real deal."
Just make sure they feed those sharks before Mike Hudson goes in the tank. What time was the feeding schedule? We want to make sure they're well fed before you get lowered down in there.
Oh man, it's going to be fun either way. But it's about finding new avenues in life and just finding what you're passionate about and just getting back out and doing it. And
And
man, life is great. We just got to find new ways to keep trucking.
Mike, you bring up an excellent point. Somebody might think, oh, this guy, he's an adrenaline junkie. He's got a death wish, this or that. That could not be further from the truth. People have desires to go out and to do things that everybody else does, whether it's skydiving or scuba diving open water or diving with the sharks or downhill skiing. I mean, these are all outdoor activities that everyone else gets to enjoy. And just because you're a person with a disability doesn't disqualify you, doesn't make that desire any more unreasonable than anyone else that wants to dive with the sharks.
You bring a good point, man. We can do anything we set our mind to. The most debilitating thing out there is a closed mind. We just got to find new ways to do it. You can research now and find all these different activities that are out there. These podcasts are awesome in that we can show and raise awareness for some of the activities we want to get into. Our nonprofit, what we like to do is find out what somebody's passionate about and help harbor their passions. But you're right, man. It's not about having an adrenaline dump or any of that. Some of that is a change in dopamine and just being able to see life in general. But I get that same excitement with seeing a big buck come in, and you can get that adrenaline. It's about living life. Um, we've had a secondary chance at life, you and I. And I just want to live the best life I can. It's not a cliche. That's not one of just your talking points anymore. Those are passions that I had prior to my injury. And now I'm just finding new ways to continue that love of life. And so sharks have always been part of my life. Again, I've been blessed in that I've grown up in places like Hawaii and Florida, and I surfed and bodyboard with them. We saw them all the time. It's not a fear. It's a healthy understanding that these creatures they're they're just as inquisitive as we are. They want to come up and talk to you and interact and all that. Unfortunately, their way of talking is sometimes with their teeth. They're just shaking hands. Our bodies are not equipped for that kind of handshake.
Dude, I definitely want to see the video and see pictures of you on your shark dive. I'm looking forward to seeing that. And man, this hour went by really quick. I always love talking with you, and I hope that we encourage some people to get out in the outdoors. Take the time right now to prepare for fall. Get your crossbow worked on, get your rifle sighted in, figure out how you're getting in and out of your ground blind if you want to make some improvements. Mike and I talked about a lot of things today, and we appreciate you listening. Mike, do you got the final words for us?
Man, I do. It just hit me. I'm gonna challenge some of the able-bodied guys and girls that are listening right now is, find those things in your neck of the woods that put yourself in our situation for a minute, and if you will, empathetic dialogue, and take a moment to think about a wheelchair or a wheelchair hunter or fisherman, and see about what those activities would look like in your neck of the woods. But also, are there some people around you, aged or otherwise, that would love to get back out and do those activities? And if you've got an extra day or extra minute, either think about it from the avenue of advocacy, or also what can you do to get somebody else out and about?